Parvajakacharya Astar Sata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna. Sai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Dhammi. Saraswati Devi Gaurahani Bacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Poshtatade Sitarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10. Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Text 31. Tvak, Charma, Mamsa, Rudira, Medo, Majasti, Datavaha, Bhumyap, Tejo Maya, Sapta, Prano, Vyomambu, Vayubhi, Tvakcharma Mamsa Rudira, Medamajasti Datavaha, Bhumyap Tejo Maya Sapta, Prano Vyomambuvayubhi, Tvakcharma Mamsa Rudira, Medamajasti Datavaha, Bhumyap Tejo Maya Sapta, Prano Vyomambuvayubhi, Tvakcharma Mamsa Rudira, Medamajasti Datavaha, Bhumyap Tejo Mayo Sapta, Prano Vyomambuvayubhi, Atsatamana Rudira, Namajasti Datavaha, Ramaya Sapta, Mamsa Rudira, Tatvada, Bhumyap Tejo Maya Sapta, Prano Vyomambuvayubhi, Rudira, Bhumyap Tejo Maya Vayubhi, Vaishnavis. Asamanavatara Namajasidatavaha Natejote Sapta Ayavi Asamanavatara Namajasidatavaha Tvak, the thin layer on the skin. Charma, skin. Mamsaha, flesh. Rudira, blood. Medaha, fat. Maja, marrow. Asti, bone. Datavaha, elements. Bhumi, earth. Up, water. Tejaha, fire. Mayaha, predominating. Sapta, seven. Pranaha, breathing air. Vyoma, sky. Ambu, water. Vayubhihi, by the air. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The seven elements of the body, namely the thin layer on the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone, are all made of earth, water, and fire, whereas the life breath is produced by the sky, water, and air. Purport. The construction of the whole material world is probably made by three elements, namely earth, water, and fire, but the life force is produced by sky, air, and water. So water is the common element in both the gross and subtle forms of all material creation. And it should be noted herewith that due to necessity, water being the most prominent in the material creation is the principal element of all the five. The material body is thus an embodiment of the five elements, and the gross manifestation is perceived because of three, namely earth, water, and fire. Sensations of touch are perceived due to the thin layer on the skin, and bone is as good as hard stone. The breathing air of life is produced of sky, air, and water, and therefore open air, regular bath, and ample space in which to live are favorable for healthy vitality. Fresh produce from the earth, like grains and vegetables, as well as fresh water and heat, is good for the upkeep of the gross body. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gadanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this verse, we're hearing about the Sapta Datava, the seven dhatus, or elements that make up the physical body, and they're listed here as the thin layer on the skin that gives the sense of touch, the skin itself, the flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone. And there are other places in the Srimad Bhagavatam, like in the 3rd canto and the 11th canto, where slightly different lists of the Sapta Dattava are given. Sometimes semen is included as one of them, sometimes something called chyle, which I'm not exactly sure what that refers to. I've looked it up in the dictionary. It's said to be the fluid that's in the lymph gland system. But the main thing is that the body is made of these different elements, these different tissues, and it's covered by the skin. So normally we're not very much aware. So normally we're not very much aware of these things unless we get injured somehow, and these are exposed. These different elements these different tissues are exposed. The blood, the fat, the marrow, the bone. Then we become more aware of these things. And I think a few years ago they had some exhibition, some very macabre exhibition that was touring around the world. I think it even came to LA, where they had actual corpses, set up, for people to see what's there, beneath the skin. So there are descriptions in the Bhagavatam of the different hellish planets one can go to. One of them is called Vaitarani, and it's especially intended for those who have been placed in high positions of respect and authority in society. And for those who misuse their positions, they get sent to, by the court of Yamaraj, they get sentenced to some time in the Vaitarani hellish planet. And there they are placed into the Vaitarani river, which is full of marrow, blood, fat, all these different things, along with stool and urine. And this river is also full, this river of blood, marrow, stool, urine, all of these bodily elements, hair. They're also living in this river, what are called Yada Ganai, the Yadas. So the Yadas are swimming in there, and they are flesh-eating, biting kinds of creatures. So they're subjected to that. Of course, these things aren't very popular in today's world, to be, that there are reactions to impious or sinful activities. These words are not very popular today, and generally we stress on the positive aspect of Krishna consciousness, that it's an opportunity for to experience a higher pleasure, a higher taste. We kind of emphasize the positive aspect. But as we're hearing here in the Bhagavatam, this element is also there, kind of as it's something we should understand. And once I went to the Angkor Wat temple in Cambodia, and I wanted to see what they displayed in that temple, which is a model of the universe. It's a model of Jambudvip. They have a central temple tower that represents Mount Meru, and then there are 4 smaller towers around that one that represent the 4 mountains that surround Mount Meru. And then there's a system of walls and moats that show the island of Jambudvip with the surrounding ocean, ring ocean. So it's actually a model of the temple itself is a model of the Vedic universe. So I wanted to see what they displayed in terms of the artwork in the temple. It's no longer a functioning Vedic temple, but at one time the Vedic culture was spread throughout that area, Southeast Asia, which they used to call Indo-China. Indo because of that Vedic influence, or just like Indonesia was part of that Vedic culture, and that's why it's called Indonesia today. So they had different, on the walls of the temple compound, and they had stone carvings, stone relief carvings, big ones. So they make a very big visual impression. And some of them were the churning of the milk ocean, the battle of Lord Ram and Ravana, all kinds of things. But among them was one huge panel where they showed all kinds of people, lines of people, soldiers, Brahmins, Vaishyas, ordinary people, all going towards Yamaraj. And then Yamaraj was sending them either up to the heavenly planets or down to the lower planets. And they had one huge section showing the 30 different hellish planets that are described in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I suppose one of them was this Vaitarani planet. So, as I said, this is not our main preaching. We want to interest people in the more positive aspects of Krishna consciousness. Just ask them to add the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra to their life, as Srila Prabhupada did when he came to the United States. He said, I just asked people to, whatever they were doing, add Krishna to it. And gradually they became purified and were able to accept some of the principles and study the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita But this is these other aspects are also part of it. So in the material world, dehinosmin yata dehe, that's the simple understanding. The soul is now in a material body, but we're getting some information about exactly what that body is composed of. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, basically it's a combination of the gross and subtle material elements, which are described by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Bhumir apanala vayu kamana buddha evacha ahankara mitiya me binapakrita ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether or space, mind, intelligence, and ahankara or false ego. Those are the elements that the material body is made of. And then we're getting some additional information here, exactly which elements combine to form these different tissues, like bone and muscle and other tissues. The more physical ones are a combination of, what did he say, earth, water, and fire. Whereas the more subtle things like prana, which is mentioned here, the prana, Srila Prabhupada gives that Sanskrit, and he translates it as the life breath. So and he says that those elements, the more subtle forms, are made of sky, air, and water. So it's exactly how this works. We just have to accept whatever knowledge we get from Shastra. But there may be some ways in which to make these things intelligible in terms of modern scientific understanding, but some researchers have compared earth to solids, air to gases. There's different states of matter that are recognized by modern science that kind of correspond in some way to the elements. Sometimes we find, the 7 elements integrated into different metaphors that are used in the Bhagavatam to describe the body, like in the prayers of the demigods to Lord Krishna in the 10th canto. The body is compared by the personified Vedas to a tree. And, it's stated that tree has 2 fruits, happiness and distress. And then the roots are the 3 modes of material nature. And then it's stated that the bark of the tree exists in 7 layers, which correspond to the Sapta Dattava. So sometimes we see, the Sapta Dattava, these 7 elements that make up, the gross physical body, listed as part of either the chariot of the body or the tree of the body. Another place in which these 7 elements are mentioned is in the description of how Lord Brahma manifests the universe. And Brahma has 2 basic duties. On the one hand, he's the engineer, the cosmic engineer who manifests the different planetary systems and the different bodies that the conditioned souls in this universe are meant to inhabit. But he's also the head of a sampradaya, giving spiritual knowledge. So as part of his creation, he manifests the Vedic literature as well. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described how he's manifesting the universe as the universal form or Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord. The universe around us, that's actually a Virat Rupa. It's a form of God in material elements. Srila Prabhupada sometimes compares it to the Archa Vigraha. So the Virat Rupa, like the Archa Vigraha, is God embodied in a form that is apparently made of material elements, but which is actually spiritual. So he said the Archa Vigraha and the Virat Rupa are of the same nature. But as the Virat Rupa is being manifest, as a personal, it's not quite personal, because it's not like Krishna and Radha, but God is present in the form of the universe, and the Sapta Dattava of that Virat Rupa, the 7 elements that are described here, they are said to be the source of the Vedas, the different kinds of Vedic sound vibration. So, that's kind of interesting. So for us, we can't say that about ourselves, but Krishna's Virat Rupa is it's the Sapta Dattava of the Virat Rupa are the source of the Vedic, different types of Vedic sound vibration. And it's described in the 11th canto by Krishna in the Uddhava Gita, his instructions to Uddhava, that the Vedic sound vibration is difficult to understand because it operates on 4 different levels. It operates as ordinary sound vibration that we hear. It also operates on the level of mind, intelligence, and the prana. So But those are different things that are mentioned in different parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But the main thing for us is just to be hearing the transcendental sound of the Hare Krishna mantra and understand that by hearing and chanting in an offenseless way, we are able to become purified. Our consciousness becomes purified so that we're able to understand that we're different than this bag of skin that covers fat, marrow, bone, other material elements. So, but this understanding is part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's what the verse of today is about, and that's what the purport is about. So I thought I would mention those things. Anybody have any questions or comments? Svavas Prabhu. What does sky mean when Papa says sky? Calm means, sometimes he translates it as ether, sometimes he calls it space. And think in one of the descriptions in the third canto, I believe, he explains, or the Bhagavatam explains, actually the verse says, is that this calm provides the space for physical and mental things to take place. If there weren't any space, we wouldn't, the way that we perceive things is I perceive myself as here, you as there, and we can organize, the deities are there, the entrance to the temple is there, the paintings are up there. But that space to do that is this element, calm. And not only is it there for the physical sense, but it's also there mentally, that we're able to arrange ideas in our head. This is happening, that's happening. We can put them, arrange them in a sequence. If there were no space and everything was just like that, you wouldn't be able to do anything. And it also may be connected with the directions, the disha, up, down, this way, that way. So it's calm, which is sometimes translated by Srila Prabhupada as ether, sometimes as space. Anything else? Satchidananda.
Thank you, Prabhu. I did like the point that you make at the end about purifying the mind by the sound vibration, chanting Hare Krishna. And I just want to mention that that's actually a fact. We've seen that. When we went in Harinam with Archita and a group of all the other devotees from here to Santa Monica, we experienced that. I was just thinking, if we will offer prasadam, they might not take it because, people are skeptical. If you offer them books, they also. But chanting the holy name is so powerful, the sound vibration, that there were at least maybe, 20 to 25 maybe students, and they were just like mad, dancing, the rhythm and the enthusiasm of the devotees.
Yeah.
So that was so good, because otherwise we're destroying this planet. As he mentioned here, in this last verse, it says that fresh produce from the earth, like grains and vegetables, as well as fresh water and heat, is good for the upkeep of the gross body. So we're destroying the bitter root, the form of the Lord. These elements were just like making a mess. And we also have this body is a small universe. We also, if we don't take care of that by putting good food on it, fresh food, and desirable things. So the chanting of the holy name is like the panacea, and we had that experience in Harinam.
Yeah.
Not this just particular time, but many times we have seen.
Haranama, 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 Kevalam, Kalana, Stavina, Stavina, Stava, Gatir, Anyata. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.